Sure. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep.
They say it'll make them stronger. I think they lie.
No, I think it's true.
Adversity
makes you stronger.
My son had respiratory issues for forever. He's kind of past them now, but he's 14.
Sure.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Holy shoot, we're supposed to be live in like 2 minutes.
I missed the seat.
Okay, I'm not positioned right. I don't even know if I'm positioned right. Somebody needs to look, because we're kind of going live. Did you send it to me, Maria?
Hey Omar, here's a question for you guys.
All right.
Do you feel comfortable drafting 2 cornerbacks in the first 2 rounds, or should we address linebacker or running back in those early stages?
The what?
Hey Omar, here's a
No.
question for you guys. Do you feel comfortable drafting 2 cornerbacks in the first 2 rounds, or should we address linebacker or running back in those early stages?
No, I don't even know what that is. Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. Are we live audio? Jamel?
You need another one? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
We're doing overtime?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes? Mm-hmm. 1 2 3 4 5. 1 2 3 4 5 6.
1 2 3 4 5.
Okay.
Did I do that? I knew that.
Phone's off. Oh. Yeah, okay. Push it real good. Nine 5 4. Oops.
Oops.
Yeah.
Oops.
Can't do that live on air. That would be bad.
I raised the stream ball. All the girls.
No.
No, that's not the
All the
problem.
hate. Yeah. That's not the problem. That wouldn't be an issue.
Yeah, we're good. Keep it on.
Okay. Sound off on the computer.
Okay, you know your recording.
Let me go to Twitter.
Your record settings.
What's up, Wells? I'm all right, man. How you doing? All right, good. Good.
Okay. We're Snapchatting the experience here so everybody sees how it goes,
such an
goes down.
experience.
I know. Look, are you ready for your show?
I am.
Excellent. Jamel, ready?
Yes, sir.
Oh.
Okay.
All right. Hold it. What do I need?
Okay, wait. You wanted to be back here?
Boom. And boom. Pen.
So,
Just
I'm
in-
going to give you a 2-minute warning and a wrap-up.
Love
Okay.
Love it.
Question for you. Where do we end up sticking the video in segment 1?
First question of segment 2.
First
First question of
Yep.
segment 2, and it's
Right after we talk about.
You need to know what that question is?
Yes.
It's right here.
Okay.
You have it written
Do you feel comfortable drafting 2 cornerbacks in the first 2 rounds?
Yeah, you got
Okay.
it. Okay.
Absolutely. Do I have that question anywhere else in the show?
Drafting 2 quarterbacks?
Yeah.
Cornerbacks?
Yeah, I think I did.
Well,
'Cause
I'll make sure we avoid it.
Okay.
In segment 2, the last one.
Segment 2, the last one. It's the,
That's a little different.
okay.
But we'll just skip it if you get.
No. That's not it. Okay, we're good.
All right.
We're good. We're safe.
We dance the dance.
We dance the dance.
We ready?
You didn't give me a hair check. You know that's very important.
Looks good.
All right. Hair check is good.
Yeah.
Okay.
29 people watching.
29 people watching. Let's make the magic happen.
This is for you.
All 29 of you.
For everyone who's watching right now, we will take all your questions in X's and Omar draft preview overtime after the show.
So if you have them, put them in the comment section or put them on Twitter, hashtag X and Omar. I also go to Instagram because I promised people I would answer questions that were in Instagram. So you're going to be very busy.
Oh, jeez.
We only have 8, so yeah. You know, you
Instagram, what
you
is
gotta
that?
venture out. And
Why was he asking?
it's easier. Huh? No. Nobody's in my DMs, unfortunately. No, fortunately. They only want to talk draft in my DMs. I'm not sure how I feel about that.
Alright.
We can't see the stuff on the side here? We can't see the stuff on the side here?
Yeah, yes, I can.
You want me to close it? No, I need, okay, that's fine.
I don't, well, it's really not a problem.
All right, cool. Hold on. Did you send it to Maria? Oops, never got it. Hold on, 1 second. Okay, I'm sorry. It's too late. Let's rock.
You tweeted it though, right?
Yeah.
Okay. You get the followers. Okay. Ready? And go.
Welcome back. This is a special draft edition of X's and Omar alongside Sun Sentinel Dolphins columnist Omar Kelly. I'm CBS 12 Sports Director Matt Lincoln. We are here to take all of your draft questions to get you ready for what the Dolphins are going to do next Thursday.
Or try to do.
Or try to do. Well, we're going to tell you exactly what they're going to do. Well, like we know. If we knew, we would maybe be doing something else. But anyway, we're going to give you all the knowledge that you need to be prepared for the NFL draft and what we think the Dolphins are going to do next week. I know you've had your head buried in all of this draft preview stuff. Are you ready for this?
For people who don't know, the draft is my favorite time of year and has always been. I love the process of evaluating talent in training camp, whether it be in the draft. Unfortunately, this is not a very good draft, and it's been quite disappointing to put in the work to look at some of these prospects and really struggle to find players that you like.
So the Dolphins are disappointing drafters, and this is a disappointing draft.
Yeah,
So,
last time that happened, it was 2013, and you saw how that draft ended up.
all right, but this is Mike Tannenbaum, second year, second draft. Adam Gase is the new head coach. This is a huge draft to see where this franchise is going to go forward.
It is a draft where it's a cosmic shift. Just from the standpoint, this is the first draft where Mike Tannenbaum officially takes over the reins. Now, he was here last year, but sort of took a back seat, allegedly, in the talent acquisition aspect of the team. Chris Greer is now the general manager after spending 15 years in the organization as one of the lower level scouts. Now he's moved up probably about 4 spots to the top spot at the position. From what people who I know in the league say is that he's a good talent evaluator. That is not the issue. Only problem is he needs to learn how to speak up. It'll be interesting to see what kind of role and what kind of voice he takes in these meeting rooms. And then Adam Gase has had success as a quarterback coach, has had success as an offensive coordinator. And really, this is his staff. And basically, the Dolphins, the executives, the scouts, are responsible for finding players that are tailor fit for Adam Gase's offense and his defense. So it'll be interesting to see the blueprints that they give him and how they deliver it.
Gase is going through all these things for the first time. What you know of him, do you feel like Gase is the guy who's going to be like, this is the guy? I need you to take this.
Yeah.
Okay.
When you do get to interact with Adam Gase and you do get to see him, you see that he has a strong
personality. There's no me. This is not a Joe Philbin. He's got a strong personality. So if there's a guy in this draft that Adam Gase has fallen in love with, I would expect him to be part of the Dolphins organization, just because that's Adam Gase's personality. He's very confident. He's very commanding, and so I expect him to have a heavy influence on the talent that's acquired.
All right, that leads us to our first Twitter question. It comes from Chris. What can or will this draft say about Mike Tannenbaum and his future in Miami?
Well, I think Mike Tannenbaum's future in Miami is safe for at least the next 2 years. The biggest concern for me is, where is Tannenbaum as far as an evaluator? And everybody in the league who knows him and has worked against him, and even some people who've worked with him, they say he does not have an eye for talent. While he might be the executive who's responsible for signing, for drafting a Darrelle Revis or DeBrickashaw Ferguson or Nick Mangold and Muhammad Wilkinson, it's not hard to be the general manager where a room full of people say, okay, that's the best guy, and you select the best guy. But can you go and identify, look at a guy and a talent and project what he can be and can become in the NFL? That's not his strength. He has to surround himself with people who are good at that.
Right.
And that's my biggest concern about the staff. While I know that there are good individuals that are in that scouting department, Chris Greer, known him and have respected his work for quite a while, Adam Egroff, Hunt. There are good individuals who are part of that organization. The question is, will Mike Tannenbaum as an executive listen to where they're leading him?
Well, that's part of it, right? It might not fall on him because
it's going to fall on him.
It's going to fall on him.
Because there's nobody inside this organization who will tell you that Chris Greer is the general manager.
Right. Okay.
Nobody outside the organization, agents, who will tell you Chris Greer is the general manager. Mike Tannenbaum's the general manager. They're just not fooling anybody.
All right. Well, let's take our next Twitter question. It comes from Tom. A lot of the way this the NFL draft works is it's who's available when you select.
Yeah.
So the question is, which teams that draft ahead of Miami will likely determine the direction the Dolphins go with the first pick?
Here's the thing about this draft for the Dolphins. After trading down with the Eagles from 8 to 13, there were really only two prospects where I felt like, oh, that's a bad move. Because Ezekiel Elliott and Vernon Hargreaves III, the University of Florida cornerback and the Ohio State running back, they are difference makers. They can come in immediately and start and be difference makers. Ezekiel Elliott can be a 1,000-yard back in the NFL. If not, a Rookie of the Year candidate. Vernon Hargreaves can be an immediate starter in the NFL, like a Sean Smith or a Vontae Davis was, and if not, transcend into a Pro Bowl player. Those were the guys that I felt like, okay, moving down makes me a little bit uncomfortable. However, there are some teams that are threatening for those two players. Jaguars, Ravens, 49ers, they all need cornerbacks. They all select ahead of Miami. Then for the running back, I don't have any belief that the Dallas Cowboys are going to select a running back. They're going to go Joey Bosa at pick number 4, unless he's already taken at pick number 3. But for running backs, your threats are the Eagles, the Giants, and the Bears, who all pick ahead of the Dolphins at 13. I think that the Dolphins might have to trade with Tampa Bay, move into that 9 spot to get ahead of the Giants and the Bears, just so they can end up with Ezekiel Elliott if he falls that far.
Let me ask you this. You just had a good running back, and you decided he was not worth a second contract.
Was not worth $24 million.
Okay, but that's the market for good running backs to keep them around.
Market was a little high.
Okay.
Okay.
The market very well may be high again if
Cheap.
this guy is good. If we're not giving second contracts to running backs, why would you draft one in the first round?
Well, I think Ezekiel Elliott can be the difference maker. I think he's the finishing piece for this offense. If you look at what's happening, you need to strengthen the guard spot a little bit. You got 2 good tight ends. You got 3 good wide receivers. You got an okay quarterback. You got an offensive line where if all the pieces are together and they're healthy, it should be respectable, if not decent. You need a workhorse back to take the pressure off Ryan Tannehill. And Ezekiel Elliott is that workhorse back. Runs with power, runs with great vision, can hit the home run, pass protects like like a mother, catches the ball out of the backfield well. Completely polished back.
Okay.
Ready to start day one.
I don't need to throw you a couple stats about first-round running backs, right? Only 12 taken in the last 7 years. Only one of them has had more than 1,000-yard rushing season. Only 4 of those 12 are still with the team that drafted them, and 2 of them are drafted last year, so they wouldn't have gone anywhere. not a lot of success
I mean,
in
hey,
first-round running backs in recent years.
There isn't a lot of success. The trend has turned on a running back. However, there are transformative players. Todd Gurley was one last year. If you would have selected Todd Gurley in the first round last year and added him to this offense, I think the Dolphins would be in the playoffs. And then you got Minnesota Vikings, Adrian Peterson.
So you think
He's in that
Ezekiel
company.
Elliott is that good?
I think he's in that company.
Okay. All right, let's move on. We witnessed a lot of free agents getting lucrative big deals this offseason, and part of the reason was the theory that this draft class is weak.
Yes.
Is that true?
Absolutely, no question about it. This is a class that's very comparable to the 2013 year. Eric Fisher went number 1, Luke Jokel went number 2, Deion Jordan went number 3. We all know what happened to Deion Jordan, but
rough.
even before he got suspended, he wasn't really that dynamic of a player, probably because he was kind of out of position. But Eric Fisher and Luke Jokel, they're just okay pros. Evidence that this is a weak draft is the team that had the number 1 pick decided, we'll trade down to pick number 15. Now the Cleveland Browns, they're auctioning off their pick. They don't want the number 2 pick.
Right.
Nobody wants the top picks in these drafts. And primarily it's because the talent level is not where it needs to be. I have talked to people in the league, executives, people who've trained these players, and they're just like, it's okay. It's an okay draft. Quarterbacks, the top 3 quarterbacks, one of them might end up being good. There is no...
But we're not sure which one it is.
Yeah, we're not sure which one it is. There is no can't miss wide receiver. There is no tight end that's going to be immediate starter. Offensive tackle and guard is a pretty decent quality of draft. Defensive tackle, really good. Pass rushers, not so much. I like the linebackers in this class. I think the cornerbacks are pretty decent, and I think the safeties are pretty decent. But ultimately, there are going to be a lot of guys who would probably be picked in the 4th and 5th round of last year's draft, selected in the 3rd and 4th round of this year's draft. That's where the caliber of talent is. And 3 years from now, most of the players selected in the 3rd day probably won't even be in the NFL.
All right. Well, let's take our first video question. It comes from Jose. Take it away, Jose.
Hey Omar, here's a question. Do you feel comfortable drafting in the first 2 rounds, or should we address linebacker or running back in those early stages?
All right, so that question kind of boils down to need. The
Yeah.
Dolphins obviously need a cornerback, but is taking 2 of them back-to-back first 2 rounds too much.
I applaud it. Here's one of the things, one of the very few things that I take from Jeff Ireland that I really, really respect, his double-down approach. I'm talking when they started, with the Jake Long draft, they doubled down on defensive ends. The next year, they doubled down on cornerbacks and wide receivers. In 2013, he doubled down on cornerbacks again. Running backs, they doubled down. And usually, the second player drafted has a better career than the first player drafted, and those players learned at the same process. So I am totally confident and fine with drafting 2 cornerbacks, because you need 2. Drafting 2 cornerbacks back-to-back, and you can wait till round 3 and round 4 to get linebacker and to get running back help. If you really look at the depth of this Dolphins draft, there are 2 positions that you need in this draft. You need to walk away with a starting caliber running back who's going to compete with Jay Ajayi, and you need to walk away with 2 cornerbacks. 2, not 1, but 2.
Oddly enough, that strategy worked with the Redskins a couple years ago.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, our next Twitter question
I
comes
wish
from...
Dolphins would have done it that year, too.
Yeah, Kirk Cousins has worked out pretty well so far. Ryan asks, when evaluating this year's draft class, what are your main focuses? Are they any different from last year?
Well, I think the main focus of every draft are the skill position players. That sort of dictates where it is. And last year you had Jameis Winston and Marcus Mariota who are up here. And this year you've got the Carson Wentz and Jared Goff and Paxton Lynch, who I love. But I know he's not a polished product. I know he's not ready to become an immediate winner in the NFL. And then the tailbacks. Last year there were probably 3 upper echelon backs. This year there's 1, Ezekiel Elliott. Wide receiver, good God, last year there might have been 5 that were just players who were perceived as transformative players. This year, Laquan Treadwell is probably the only guy. There isn't even a first-round a tight end. Hunter Henry, he's the only top-rated tight end. He might go in the second day. There's no guarantee. He's definitely not a first-round talent. So the skill positions kind of indicate it. I think this is probably a draft where it's going to be a little bit defensive heavy. I project there's probably going to be 18 defensive players selected in the first round, 18 if not 20 defensive players selected in the first round. A lot of defensive tackles, a lot of cornerbacks, a lot of linebackers, some pass rushers. the offensive players, I really think it's a fairly weak draft.
I have seen some mock drafts, though, where all three of those quarterbacks go before the Dolphins take it 13.
That would be great for the
and
Dolphins.
That means talented players who are falling down.
I honestly think that the Dolphins benefit from Paxton Lynch's presence in the draft, especially if he's sitting there around picks 8 through right where the Dolphins pick at 13, because teams are going to need to get up for him because they know that Denver's probably, if Denver doesn't do anything with the quarterback position with Colin Kaepernick or with Hoyer, they're probably going to target Paxton Lynch, and they might have to move up for him. And for the Dolphins, I don't think it's a bad idea to move down a little bit further in the draft, because I think the caliber of cornerback that you can get once the Vernon Hargreaves is gone, you can get a good cornerback, Artie Burns or William Jackson III, in the 20s instead of having to take one at 13.
Yeah.
And I think you definitely need some additional picks.
No one knows what the Browns are doing it too. They could take a quarterback.
Yeah.
Niners, Eagles, both up there in the top 10, could take.
Eagles still want a quarterback. I wouldn't be surprised if they trade up with Cleveland so they can get one of the top 2 guys.
Like you said, defense is solid. Linebacker, defensive tackle, lots of talented guys. Cornerback, like you said, towards the end of the first round. How is that going to impact what the Dolphins do?
You know, what's interesting is the draft always has different ebbs and flows, and I think there's going to be a run on defensive tackles at some point. You just don't know how early it is. If it comes in rounds 5, picks 5 through 10, Dolphins going to benefit.
Yeah.
But that means that one of the top-rated defensive players, DeForest Buckner, Ashawn Robinson, Reggie Ragland, they either, Miles Jack, Darren Lee, they either need to be taken before the Dolphins pick, or if the Dolphins are going to take the BPA approach, best player available approach, they might be sitting there with a Miles Jack or a Reggie Ragland on their board at 13 and have that player rated a top 10 prospect. And I'm sorry, you're either a draft needs team or you're a BPA team. And based on where this Dolphins team is, talent-wise, they need to be drafting BPA.
Sure, talented guys who rush the passer, have some injury questions. I mean, Miles Jack could be a top 3 pick if he didn't have a knee issue. Also, Shaq Lawson from Clemson is a very talented guy. He's had some injury issues as well. Would you have any issues drafting those guys? If
Absolutely. I do not draft. If you're an injured player coming into the draft, you drop around, in my opinion.
Okay.
That's just my opinion.
Okay.
I've seen so many good trainers worked extremely hard to mask injuries like Devontae Parker. That injury was masked in the draft process. You get him, he's a year delayed because of that foot injury. Drafting injured players is a bad idea. Early. Now, if you drop them around and they're sitting there in round number 2, I'm not saying that I would draft Miles Jack in round number 2 because he's a top 5 talent, but I wouldn't draft him in the top 5. I'm not sure I would draft him in the top 10 because I don't know where the medical history is.
Quickly, let's take this Twitter question from LCI. How important is it that an offensive lineman is drafted in the first 3 rounds?
Woo, the trench play lover in me would tell you that it's the most important thing, because I personally believe that this team is not going anywhere without a brick wall in front of Ryan Tannehill. Nowhere. I did a statistical study of the Dolphins in the past 2 years, and during the games that Juwan James, Mike Pouncey, and Brandon Albert started and finished the games, the Dolphins have a 6-1 record. The quarterback has a 104 quarterback rating. They're running for 137 yards and scoring 35 points a game. That's 2 years, 7 games, 6-1 record. The only loss is the Green Bay Packers in that fourth quarter.
They played well that game.
Played well that game. If you create the brick wall, you will win. With this quarterback. Let me add that caveat. With this quarterback, create the brick wall. So if the Dolphins go out and they select an offensive lineman in the first round, I won't be pleased, but I understand. I understand.
There are plenty of guys in that range that would make sense.
Yeah, you win football in the trenches at the line of scrimmage. And last year, the Dolphins got dominated all season in the line of scrimmage. You got to do something to change that.
Is there a guy of those linemen that are in that range that you like more than
first round?
Yeah.
No,
they're all just kind of the same.
They're all just kind of the same. I would select an offensive lineman if I'm gonna go that route. I would select an offensive lineman in the second day, if not the 4th round.
Okay, let's move on. Of course, it's more than just the first round. There are 6 more rounds and hours more of draft to watch. And of course, the Dolphins have had some great players that have come late. Jason Taylor, Zach Thomas, Jeremiah Bell, Channing Crowder, Kendall Langford, Brian Hartline, Rashad Jones, Charles Clay, Lamar Miller, Olivia Vernon. We could go on and on and on and on. So what has happened to the Dolphins in the later rounds the past few years, and why have they not worked?
I think they've done a bad job of talent evaluation, a bad job of understanding where the talent is. Some players have intellectual shortcomings. Some players had athletic shortcomings. Some players were from small schools and just fizzled out when the competition level raised. You can't take, that was my main criticism of the Dennis Hickey's first draft. It was filled with small school players. Right. And I was thinking to myself, like, man, a draft pick is a risk in general. Mm-hmm. If 25% of your draft class pans out and becomes good NFL players, you're a winner.
Right.
You're a good GM. But you're decreasing your odds when you're selecting smaller school players. And as we saw, there are 2 players from that draft that are good players in Juwan James and Jarvis Landry, and the rest is still unproven. Yeah. Still has plenty of work to do.
And those 2 guys play in the SEC.
Yeah. I think the Dolphins need to stick with the higher level of competition, the SEC, the ACC, the Big Ten, and add players who can play at a high level.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's take another Twitter question from Andy. If Ezekiel Elliott is not available at number 13, what tailback could we draft that fits the needs of Adam Gase's offense?
There are 2 that I really like in the draft process, 3 that I really like in the draft process. We're going to start with Kenneth Dixon, a guy who is just a threat every time he touches the ball. I just did a positional breakdown, and you'll be seeing that daily in the Sun Sentinel. The running back positional breakdown is up. And Kenneth Dixon, I described him as a back who can take a 2-yard loss and turn it into a first down. And that's impressive trait.
Yeah.
Speed, hands, best catcher in the draft. Devontae Booker is one of the guys that I think is a transformative player. He is coming back from a knee injury. He's going to need some time, but I think that he's a difference maker. Alex Collins, right here from our own area in Broward, I think that we have not seen the best of him yet. He's one of those workhorse backs that has great vision and can find the running lanes and churns it out. He reminds me a lot of Frank Gore. I'm not comparing him to Frank Gore, but I think he's got a lot of Frank Gore in him in terms of a guy who can consistently give you first downs. Those are the back that I really have my eyes on. UCLA's Paul Perkins, Alabama's Kenyon Drake. The elephant in the room is going to be a former Heisman Trophy winner from University of Alabama. That's a massive beast of a human being, and he's going to be staring at the Dolphins in round 2. I think he's going to be in the second round, and I'm not sure that they're going to be willing to pick Henry in round 2, just because for this offense, this particular offense, you need a back that can pass protect, and you need a back that can catch passes out of the backfield and be a threat catching passes, because when you're lightening Ryan Tannehill's load, you're going to be putting more on the backs. And I just don't see that from Henry.
Well, you're right. He could be available, but they're probably going to need to use that second-round pick on Dixon or Booker, I think. I don't know if they're going to be standing around.
I don't think you have to. It depends on what you do in the first round. If you're taking a cornerback in the first round, then you definitely pull the trigger on the running back that you like in the second round. Now, but if you see a BPA in the second round that you can't pass up on, like last year when they took Jordan Phillips, maybe you got to wait on a third round or a fourth round running back. And I don't think that this is a bad draft. If you miss on Ezekiel Elliott, I don't think there's a bad draft to wait on, because you can find a guy like Kelvin Taylor in the later rounds, and they can be a difference maker. He can be a 1,000-yard back for you.
We have a challenge.
Hey, how's it going?
Good.
Hey.
Good. So this challenge comes from Mike. You said that the Dolphins should probably get Ezekiel Elliott. So he says, challenge, the Dolphins don't need Ezekiel Elliott. He's going to be the biggest bust of 2016.
Okay. I'd like to wager your firstborn, Mike, on that question.
Wow.
I was a big fan of Mike Ingram, and I was wrong on that.
Sure.
I was very wrong on that. But you learn lessons from that. I think it would be very hard to find an Ohio State back who's been a bust in the NFL. Just the pedigree. I mean, this guy's broken Eddie George's records, and he is in that mold, in that same mold. I I really think he's going to be a difference maker. And here's the thing about the Dolphins. They've got Jay Ajayi, they've got Damian Williams, they've got Daniel Thomas.
They do, for now.
You need more than one back. So I'm not opposed to missing out on Ezekiel Elliott and then doubling down on backs later on in the draft.
All right, but if he's not available, let's take Mark's question. Outside of Ezekiel Elliott and Vernon Hargreaves, which realistic player at 13 would give the Dolphins the biggest immediate impact?
It's got to be cornerback because whoever comes in, if not two players who come in, will be immediate starters, just like Sean Smith and Vontae Davis was. The question is, can they play? And to me, I like Mackenzie Alexander, the Clemson cornerback, primarily because he's shown you that he can shadow. He has the footwork to shadow. He does not have a career interception, but he's got pretty decent ball recognition. And that, to me, is very important. I love what he does. I also love UM's Artie Burns. I think that kid is going to be, I think when we look at this draft 5 years from now, Artie Burns is going to be the player that gets the $50 million contract that people are saying, how do we miss on him? And primarily because you saw the talent there at University of Miami last year. Yeah, it just came out of nowhere. But what about, I've been complaining about this University of Miami for nearly a decade now. Horrendous coaching. There were certain positions that were coached pretty well. University of Miami has players and prospects have been held back by poor coaching. Look how many times we complain about the cornerbacks who are off the line of scrimmage, who are playing 7 yards off. That's a horrible scheme for these players. When Artie Burns gets coached up by a real good secondary coach and is put in a good defense, woo, that kid's going to tear it up. And if the Dolphins selected him at 13, I would applaud it because it means that you have done your work, you've thoroughly evaluated, you know this kid is going to push extra hard because this is hometown, and he's going to make the most of his opportunities. I truly believe that.
Seen a lot of Eli Apple in a lot of these mock drafts. What do you think of Apple?
Not a huge Eli Apple fan, primarily because I think Ohio State has so much talent around him. I mean, he's basically playing on an NFL defense right now. How much of a heavy load has he had to lift? He's got great safety help. He's got great linebackers. He's got great pass rushers. Like, okay, it's not that hard to look good in a defense of that caliber, especially when you got an offense that's putting up a ridiculous amount of points.
If he gets drafted by the Dolphins, he won't have that next year. So.
No.
All right, well, thank you so much for joining us. That's it for the show today. If you are watching us live, we will take some of your questions using the hashtag XOmar and, of course, right here on In the Talk. So what do we call this? The
Extra overtime.
Extra overtime, right. So just send it to us, and we'll just hang on tight right here for X and Omar overtime, and we'll see what the Dolphins do next week.
Yeah, we missed this question.
Yeah, we skipped two. So let's take Jabari's question while you fire that up. Which cornerbacks fit Vance Joseph's system?
Well, the Dolphins want a cornerback with size, so you're going to have to look at all the guys who are basically 6'1" and above, just because they believe that there are a lot of bigger receivers in this division, the Sammy Watkins, the Brandon Marshalls. You need big receivers. So I think Eli Apple fits it, Artie Burns fits it, William Jackson III fits it, and then Harlan Miller, who's one of my sleepers in this draft. I watched him at the Senior Bowl. I think he's a dynamic talent. I thought he had a very effective game, good size, good recovery speed. So, yeah, I think that's definitely the route that you want to go.
How long can they wait to get Miller?
Miller, probably, I would say, if you really, really like him, take him in the third round. If you fourth round priority. I think he's a third to fourth round range kind of prospect.
We also skipped Lonnie's question. What are the chances Dolphins make another trade up or down in the first round?
I think it's very good. Mike Tannenbaum has a Trader Bob reputation, so you definitely have to think that he's going to trade. He's going to make some trades. He's definitely going to make some trades.
Right.
He made some trades last year. He's already made one trade in this draft. And in this caliber of draft, you could go either way. I personally would prefer to trade up and give up picks because I don't need mediocre talent on my team. I want the good ones. And a good draft, universally, it's defined. A good draft is a draft where you've got 3 starters. 4 years
Immediately,
later.
4 years later, right.
4 years later. So all you got to do is have 3 starters. Give me 4 good players in this draft as opposed to 8 picks, and I'm good. If you
Okay.
trade up and get me Ezekiel Elliott, I think you've done a great job.
Scott asks, well, let's not do that question. Let's do
Hey.
from Jersquall. What are we looking for in this draft process that tells us that the Dolphins have gotten better at evaluating talent?
Good Lord. I think it's finding players that fit the prototype in terms of size, finding players that have won at a high level of competition, finding players who've been captains of their team, find players who have won. That's one of the biggest things that I think I have an issue with this Dolphins organization. When I look at some of the players that I feel are anchors to this team, they've never won. Mm-hmm. You look at Ryan Tannehill. What has he ever won?
Right.
That's one of the reasons why I'm a big fan of Carson Wentz, because he's playing at a lower level of talent, but he's a big winner. Mm-hmm. The quarterback when he was injured won as well, but I need a winner, and I think that you have to get that winning mentality. And also, this team is so absent of leadership. Mm-hmm. You got to add leaders to your team. Now, I know a young player, Jarvis Landry, come in here, second year, leader of the team, alpha male of that locker room. It's only taken him 1 year to do that. Add some personalities
You can be
like
young
that.
guys. You can be young guys.
You can be a young guy and a leader. All you got to do is produce on the field.
A couple people asking about Cam Wake and whether or not
What about
they
Cam?
could be traded for picks.
Cam Wake can be traded?
Cam Wake could be traded for picks. I wouldn't have even brought it up, but a couple people asked.
I'm sure that Cam Wake can be traded for picks. I'm sure that Cam Wake is not opposed to being traded from the Dolphins. Cam Wake has never played for a winner, and I'm certain that's something that he wants to do in his NFL career. After the Dolphins have tried to shake him down, I'm sure that that's something that sits in the pit of his stomach.
Yeah.
Cam Wake denied being shaken down for contracts that cut me. So it wouldn't surprise me if he's traded, but when you're trading Cam Wake, all you're doing is creating another void on your roster.
Next
and sending the wrong
question
message to your locker room.
is
I got one here.
Okay.
Do you believe that this Dolphins team is capable of winning? From Leaks S. Do I believe that this Dolphins team is capable of winning? Yes. If they get Ezekiel Elliott, I will put you in the 9 wins category.
wow.
I think he's a transformative player that can change your team.
Okay.
So, yes, if they get Ezekiel Elliott. Otherwise, no, probably not.
Christian asks, what glaring hole could be left open after the draft is over that maybe still be able to be fixed?
Defensive tackle.
Yeah.
I think it's I'm not a huge Earl Thomas fan or Earl Mitchell fan.
Yeah.
Jordan Phillips was okay.
Might work out, yeah.
Might work out. You got to find somebody to play next to Ndamukong Suh who can beat a single block and can collapse the pocket and can make impact plays. And I don't see that on the roster right now.
Do you
I know they just picked up Chris Jones from the Patriots, but I mean, how many times does this guy have to be cut from a team for you to realize that there's something wrong with him? No offense, Chris Jones.
Do you like A'Shawn Robinson, the guy from Alabama?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right.
I don't like either of those Alabama prospects are as coached up as they're possibly going to be.
Yeah.
When they get to the NFL,
It's like a letdown.
it's like the ceiling he's already maxed out his talent. And that is troublesome. I want a guy who's ascending up. I want a guy like Artie Burns.
So in that case, no one has won more than Alabama. So you would pass on those winners.
No. I would I want those winners. I'm just not over-evaluating the talent because they've won.
Okay, that makes sense.
I'm not. I think both of those defensive tackles are probably worthy of picks 15 through 40. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly the range I would put them. Just because they played and won at Alabama. Who doesn't play and win in Alabama? D. Milner played and won at Alabama. Who doesn't win at Alabama? You've got the best coach in all of football. So, to me, that's a concern.
Well, just like that, a Buckeye Fin fan,
Okay.
as an OSU Buckeye fan, I would like to hear your thoughts on how good the draft class will be in the NFL. Would you think Ohio State is the same way?
It's getting about that point. If you look at where his prospects were at Florida, and then when they got to the NFL, some are producing now.
No, they're in jail.
Stop it. So stop it. They're okay. I think another guy who does a tremendous job of coaching up his talent around him. You can see he's a transformative coach. I hope that one day he goes to the NFL and gives it a try.
Gives it a try, yeah.
Yeah, but I've watched the Ohio State defense, and I like their safeties.
Mm-hmm.
I like Darren Lee. Everything else is meh.
What would you think about linebacker in the first round?
I wouldn't be a big fan, and primarily because I think you've got 3 starting linebackers if Kiko Alonso is healthy. You've got a young guy in Neville Hewitt that is transcending up and can be developed. I wouldn't take one early unless you've seen something in Kiko Alonso that makes you really concerned from a medical standpoint or a strength standpoint or just an intellectual shortcoming standpoint. Why would you need to take a linebacker that early? You've got Cole Messi. We know Cole Messi's steady and ready. You've got Jelani Jenkins, who's entering a contract year. You all know what happens in a contract year. You saw one last year with Olivier Vernon. You saw one last year in Lamar Miller. You always want to bank on a guy in a contract year.
Right.
Ride that train. So I really don't see. I want an immediate starter in the first round. An immediate starter. Why am I going to draft a defensive end and then have him sit behind Cameron Wake and Mario Williams? Why am I going to draft a linebacker and then have him not be able to beat out any of the top 3 guys?
Okay.
Give me a guy who's going to come in, start, and develop.
All right. Best available player.
I'm a needs draft guy. I am. I'm not even going to deny it. Needs and trench play.
All right. Just how about Adam Gase's question? Since you've got to get to know him,
Okay.
Has your opinion about him changed at all from what you heard about him?
Yes, it has. He's kind of arrogant, and I'm good with arrogance.
Yes.
I'm good with that.
We haven't had a lot of that around lately.
He's kind of arrogant, and that's not a knock for your football coach. He's kind of machismo.
Yeah.
He's not Tony Sperano machismo, but I like a guy with confidence. He believes he can fix Ryan Tannehill. Damn it. He believes he can give me any guard. I can make this line work. All right. All right. Yeah, you must be one hell of a coach.
No, not seeing the guards that have been around here in recent years.
Oh, man.
Okay, this is a good question because we haven't really talked too much about it. Finn Mansky wants to know. Well, your criticism of Ajayi is ridiculous.
Well,
this kid will be very good. Is there
Okay.
any chance Ajayi
Yes.
could
There's
be,
absolutely.
could be
that guy. Absolutely. He is based on Nolan Naraki, and let me give Nolan a promo because I don't even know Nolan Naraki, but I have followed his work for over a decade, and this is the premier draft guide. You get all the juice, you get all the dirt, you get all the baby mama's drama, you get everything. You get everything medical. So I like my TMZ-esque draft guide. And Nolan Naraki, whose grades I look at, I don't really say that they're the gospel. Jay Ajayi, before the injury was factored in, was the 3rd highest rated running back in his draft class last year and would have a higher draft grade than everybody except for Ezekiel Elliott and Derrick Henry in this draft. So he'd be the 3rd highest rated back. So can I sit here and say that Jay Ajayi cannot be a 1,000-yard runner? I can't say that because I've seen him be good at times in exhibition games and in games. What I haven't seen is consistency. I haven't seen durability. And I need to see him learn that you are not going to run on the outside every time. Take what's between the tackles and make the most of it. He's like a magnet drawing him to the outside. And you're not going to consistently hit outside runs in the NFL.
Gut feeling. So, you know, we know that I'm pretty good feeling that Elliott and Hargraves are not going to be there.
Correct.
So who are the Dolphins going to take with pick 13?
A cornerback. I think Mackenzie Alexander is probably the best one if you want to go to the safe route. Eli Apple. He's won. He's at the highest level of the position. I'm not a huge fan. I would prefer Artie Burns over Eli Apple. So I think it's a cornerback. It's definitely a cornerback. If you just look at what this team has done over the years, they drafted Juwan James, a second-round talent in the first round because it was a position of need, and they were just like, let me get that.
Yeah.
And they're just going to take the best cornerback available if Ezekiel Elliott is not there, in my opinion. Because they've already gone on record and said they are going to draft immediate starters in the first 2 rounds.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're not going to draft the defensive end and make him an immediate starter.
Someone. Yeah. Go ahead. I mean, someone asked about needing a good receiver.
What?
That's the one position that we know they're not taking.
They've got 3 good receivers in Kenny Stills, Devontae Parker, and Jarvis Landry. They've got a backup slot receiver in the kid that they signed from Indiana in the Colts. And you folks still have not seen the best of Matt Hazel, who I think is growing, transcending. You possibly could see a Rashard Matthews-esque transcending from Matt Hazel.
Let's take one more. We got a challenge from Burritos for Breakfast, who likes to send us some good stuff, and I think this is an interesting.
All right, tell me what you got, Burritos for Breakfast. I'm gonna open my jacket here.
None of the off-season acquisitions show the Dolphins want quality players with a winning mentality. They're either bad or injured, or in the case of Mario Williams, a quitter.
I cannot argue against any of that, and I've never thought about that. No. Didn't Byron Maxwell win a Super Bowl with the Seahawks?
Yeah. How much of it was Byron Maxwell and how much
He
of it was
contributed.
riding the
He was part of
coattails
Legion
of everyone else?
He was part of Legion of Doom.
Okay.
A very important part of Legion of Doom. So, that's all I got.
Have you had a chance to meet him yet? Talk to him yet?
No.
I haven't seen him yet either.
No.
Okay. I don't know.
Hey, he's got his money. He's coming off a bad season. He's got to silence his critics, as does Mario Williams. I like people who are backed into a corner.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us. Of course, we'll try to hit up as much of your questions just on regular daily life. You can tweet at us at
We will
Matt
be
Lincoln
back.
TV, at Omar Kelly.
We will be back the week after the draft to give you a breakdown of how the Dolphins did perform. So looking forward to that.
Should we do a preview of that? Disappointing.
I'm going to be a little bit more optimistic than you, Matt. You're just so used to being disappointing. Listen, they need a transformative player, a starting cornerback, and a workhorse back that can take the load off Ryan Tannehill. Trade up for Ezekiel Elliott and go get Artie Burns.
God, if they were only picking at pick 8,
Oh!
it would have really
Oh, yeah.
for him. Thanks for joining us on X's and Omar.